Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Distorted Podcast. Today I'm joined once again by Dr. Sonja Sollenberger, a.k.a. my wife.
Hello.
Hello. Today we're going to talk about, well, there's a bunch of different things we can talk about, but today we're going to cover some of the distortions. There's a lot of them. There's over 20 distortions. We're going to try to cover them and separately so that it's not overwhelming. I don't want to go over too many of them at the same time. Today we're going to touch on some of the distortions that are related to fear. They can all the distortions can be attached to any emotion, but we're going to try to hone in on specific distortions that apply to the worry component of distortion, being afraid of a happening or being out of control with something. And we're going to try to touch on some of the distortions that would piggyback with fear, just as a starting point. And then obviously as we do more of these, we'll cover all of them at some point. So Sonja and I were talking beforehand. Mm-hmm. She had an example of a generic form of something you could worry about, a very simple thing that can happen. You want to give them the example, and then we can go with that?
Sure. Okay. As you know, I had a really bad week, and one of the things that happened was the TV remote broke. It quit working. It froze up. And this was like the second in a series of 4 bad things that happened that week. But when the remote broke, I put my head down on the desk, and I was so mad. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. And I asked Lenny to help me, and he couldn't get it either. So then I either wanted to cry or scream or both because it just felt like too much in that moment. And what I came up with once I got the remote replaced from Cox. Later, what I came up with was when Lenny was programming the remote to the TV, I got even more anxious because I thought I have to know how to program the remote because Lenny may not always be around.
Now, that's a lot to take. It seems like a simple thing, but you have to understand there's context and there's a lot to take in. A series of events building up on somebody. So you said the remote is a symbolic thing at that point. It's not the end-all, be-all in and of itself. But you also have to understand that my lovely wife likes to watch certain television shows at certain times, so it can be very disruptive to her normal day if that's not available to her. So
it's a coping mechanism.
That's right. So understand that for everyone out there, you know how this works. You have, a flat tire on a car, or one of your pets gets sick, or a child is late to something. These little things will build up, and then traffic's bad, or there's a storm out. We just had some storms recently. And you get these little patterns, and then so one more thing happens, and it just adds to that. And everybody can understand what we're talking about. So in this case, we're talking about the remote leading to the ultimate thought that she had, and I hope everybody caught that at the end. There's this significant jump from the remote itself and the problem with not having access, jumping into, and this is where it gets into the distortion world and it happens so quickly, is not only it not working, but if I wasn't there to figure it out, or I didn't know how to figure it out, her head, in that briefest of moments, jumps to, what if he isn't even available to do this? Now you'd say, well, that's really, why would someone go there? Well, because again, you're not starting there. It's not like you start with, the remote's down, my husband's going to be gone. It's a buildup. Yeah, it's a buildup. It's bad things have happened, and I'm not in a position to deal with this. He is, but what if he wasn't? And so, again, put it in your own picture, guys out there and gals. Think about this from a perspective of you've had something happen, it's a buildup, and that one more thing happens, and you just don't know where to put it. So let's talk a little bit about the distortions that would come in, because, we had this discussion. So we can start off with magnification, the idea that this little thing is being exaggerated in its importance. So it goes from what if it was all by itself and there was no other issues for that week, it wouldn't have been a big deal. We would have just said, oh, hey, we need to get a new remote. It's we've used it for all these years, and you have to replace those once in a while. And then the idea of programming it becomes quite simple because they give you the instructions and it's not a big deal. But that wasn't the only thing that was
for
going
you.
For
it
me,
was not
for
a
me.
big deal.
Well, I take that back. All right. So for me, it wasn't. But you have that one thing. So you magnify the importance of it. Again, because you already have other things in your mind. You already have other hurdles you've jumped through. Is that so far we're on the same page?
Yes.
Right? So magnification is one of the things that happens. Mental mistakes they're not individualized. They always piggyback with one another. So another one that starts to happen, because this is considered through the lens of a negative problem, we can catastrophize. We've already increased its importance through the thoughts that we're having. And because we're thinking negatively, it can become catastrophic, meaning that it's not just a thing that's happening, but it's so awful. So now that's in your head. And again, don't forget, she jumped to, in her mind, if he wasn't here to fix this, then it would be even worse, catastrophizing, magnifying. Everybody getting a feel for this. It's bigger than it needs to be. Everybody can relate to that. Maybe not with the remote, but don't get caught up on the remote. It's not about the remote. Mm-hmm. And then the catastrophizing of it because it's a bad thing on the shoulders of other bad things. And then in addition to that, because she didn't feel equipped in that moment to deal with it, me not being able to do that would be even more problems on top of it.
Is it also catastrophizing because in that moment I thought, what else is going to go wrong?
Yes. And when we start to get to that feeling, we start to do that negative projection, which we might say projection for another day, but there's that negative projection of, let me throw it to another lens. Let me throw it through the mental filter lens. When something happens that reinforces where we're already at, it can double down on whatever emotion we're carrying. So you can either call that gut thinking, which is its own distortion, or you can throw it under the mental filter. And the mental filter would be basically, we talked about this one too, the confirmatory evidence. Yeah, you can look if you need to.
Right.
The confirmatory evidence. Something that I'm acknowledging because it already reinforces where my head is at.
Right.
Right.
This week has been awful, and it's going to continue to be awful until I remedy this problem.
Right.
And how am I going to remedy this problem?
Right. And then, so I don't know if you can feel it out there, but can you feel the anxiety, everyone? Right? You can feel where the anxiety would start to come up. And this is pretty normal. So we're normalizing this stuff because somebody out there is saying, okay, well, yeah, I've felt anxiety like this before. It's normal to have these types of thoughts. You don't act on all of these thoughts when you have them. You certainly don't, not everybody spirals into something like a panic attack. We're not talking about that at this point.
No.
We're just talking about normal thinking process and piggybacking on that, saying, oh my gosh, another bad thing?
And it can happen so fast where I wanted to scream or cry, but it was 5 o'clock in the morning and I didn't want to scare you or the cats.
We'll talk about the cats on another podcast.
Yeah. But I didn't want to scare you.
Yes. Because in that moment, you were really feeling all that.
Or ramp myself up more.
Sure.
I was trying to bring myself down.
Sure. So let's throw the other one in there because you kind of just talked about it. She's describing another distortion, which is not being able to tolerate the can'ts, right? It's different from the shoulds. We'll cover that another time. But like not being able to do something or telling yourself that you can't withstand something. So the opposite of resiliency, the idea that something is happening and you're not going to get through it. Now, so let me go back and rewind because this gets complicated. You have an event. You're making more out of it than it needs to be, and there's circumstances that cause it, real or perceived.
Imagined, yeah.
Right? And then you have it in a negative context because you're perceiving it as a negative thing. You can magnify positive too, by the way, just so everybody knows. You can magnify something positive. Catastrophizing is specific to the negative. It's a bad thing made worse, right?
Yes.
Let me give you another parallel. Sadness turned into depression, right?
Yes.
You're just sad. It's not necessarily depression. Whereas you're upset, it's not horribly awful. Then add in the piece that you don't think you're going to get through it. Let me put another side note on this. In that moment that it's happening, you're not like, the sky is falling. You're not like at that level.
I was a little bit.
Okay, maybe a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit of De Niro in there. A little bit. But not too much. And so you don't know if you're going to get through it. And then that came back again at the end of this journey when the programming thing had to take place, and she had that thought pop back in again. What if he's not here to do this? Would I figure it out without all of the other stressors that were already there?
And then I magnified it even more because I said, go back and do it again so I can see exactly what you're doing.
Right.
Because I don't know if I can do it for myself.
Right. Still having that thought in her head, what if Len's not there, and then she has to do it. So again, some of you may be saying out there, well, that seems so silly. You're talking about a remote. Remember, it's not about the remote. It's the symbolic idea of anything coming into your life after you have dealt with certain things that were difficult. Again, I used some examples. I said a flat tire or a child being late to something, something at work changing. And all of that happens within a week's period. And by the time the end of the week rolls up, you're having a harder time relaxing. So you have to put it in perspective. Don't get caught up on the remote, and don't get caught up on, your wife's complaining over remote. That's not it, guys. So let's go back to this one more time. We'll go through this whole process.
And it's a series of events.
Right.
One building on another.
Right.
Right.
And distortions work this way. It's one distortion building until another one kicks in, right? And then you start to get overwhelmed by the distortions, because remember, we talked about this on previous podcasts. The distortions don't resolve, okay? So that's one thing I want you to get thematically when I do all these. It doesn't resolve. So it stays. And it's preloaded for the next issue.
Yes.
Right.
So when the ceiling fan broke and the car battery broke.
Sure. Yeah. Boom. And these are typically things that I would be involved in or deal with so that she doesn't have to. And so again, the if I'm not there, the idea of I can't deal with this on top of this other thing. And then the revert of that is the rational process that we've talked about before of challenging what the thinking is so that you can put yourself in a position to get through that with resiliency, right? So this is where, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to say this and I'm probably right. This is where you might pray. This is where you would do some deep breathing. This is where she might sit with one of our two cats just to get some comfort, right? And
I did those things.
And you did those things, yeah. And so, see, we're talking about this from like, okay, so the bad things happen. There's a way out. But don't forget, your thoughts can get ahead of you. And then that's the whole idea of the catastrophizing. It's a horrible thing. The process of I can't deal with it versus maybe you can. The idea of magnifying how important it is for this to get rectified quicker than late, And so all these things are piling in. So don't forget, everybody, this all piles in on you. And if you don't take the time to slow yourself down physically, challenge that process with the 3 questions that we've thrown out there before. Is my thinking based on fact? Is my thinking helping me feel the way I want to feel? And is my thinking helping me reach a goal or expectation? We put those out there so we can regulate and the thoughts don't become overwhelming. Go ahead.
Can I add this? Yeah. Now looking back, and once I was able to replace the remote, you got it programmed, and then I got my TV back.
Yeah.
I was able to, in that moment, say, thank God I overcame this and I survived it.
Yes.
And that's the resilience piece.
Within the context of we're not trying to compare this to a life and death health issue or anything like that. We're saying that there's a mental piece to this that feels just like she just described it. So I want you guys to get that connection. My wife is not comparing a remote to life and death.
It's not crisis.
It's a physiological response, and it has that effect.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
It has that effect
Yeah.
of the heart racing
Yeah.
and that maybe headache and sweaty palms. How am I going to get through this? And then at the end, I can say, thank goodness I did get through it.
Right.
And that means I can get through the next thing that comes up. Just want to throw that out there.
No, throw it out there. And for people who are in therapy for this type of thing, or for people who know you have family and friends that go through this type of thing, understand the process for them. The underlying process is that the thoughts are causing them a physiological response. This has nothing to do with weakness. My wife's stronger than any of you, I promise you. And it has nothing to do with a weakness. It has to do with the fact that there's a capacity when the thoughts go unresolved to create a pattern inside of you that can cause you to be more physically agitated. You'll see this same pattern with pain.
Yes.
Physical pain can cause this. So for anybody out there who's suffering with a maladaptive thing like a migraine or fibromyalgia or any kind of neck or back pain or anything that would cause anything chronic, you have a similar effect when they have a chronic pain. It can agitate you to the point of feeling anxious because you can't make it go away. There's not a way to settle it, right? So I want everybody to understand that the anxiety component to this, there is a physiological piece to this.
Yes.
And that's not because a person is weak or they don't have the right, you have to give people some grace, okay? That this is a common thing. And even those of us who don't have like an anxiety disorder, there are times when we are worried and or anticipating.
Yes.
And that can generate this platform. And I want everyone to feel better about it because we're just regular folk, even though we have degrees in this field, that she's being very vulnerable and telling you something by saying, hey, this is a thing that affects everybody, that this is that's why they're called common mental mistakes. It's a very normal thing to have a distortion, but it's also okay to challenge it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to know that to be able to look back and do a self-assessment to say that was really stressful at 5 o'clock in the morning, but for us, the Lord helped me figure out how to deal with this situation that was a novel situation for me without my husband there to help me or assist me initially. And the Lord helped me get through that.
Yeah, and there's pieces provided to help with that too, right? So so let's tie this all up. Let's talk about so we said there's the cognitive challenge you can do. We said you can do deep breathing, which is an easy technique to learn. We did that actually on a different podcast. I don't think it's come out yet, but we did do it. Maybe it did.
It did come out.
Yeah, so we did do it. All right. And there's other things like people do their pets, or you can pray, you can do something physical, go for a walk or do some stretching. You can read, there's other ways to get yourself into a position, listening to music, painting,
watching TV.
That's the ironic. So you have to do some self-care, some soothing, and then again, the challenge piece to help you get rid of the distorted thought so you can get back into solving, right? So we talked about resolvable thought is the one that's rational and it has an end.
When that primary coping goes away, I'm not ashamed to admit it's TVs and movies, then you have to employ other coping strategies.
Yes, that's a great segue. This is a great segue. Everybody has a baseline. Everybody has a baseline for what they can tolerate. And we were talking about fear, like a fear-based thing, but the idea of not having control is what generated this fear, right? Not knowing if it was going to resolve, but knowing somewhere deeper that it would, and that conflict that takes place. But the baseline that everybody has, that changes for people. Not everybody's baseline is the same. Some people have more tolerance for stressful events. My background, I have a background that goes previous to counseling in law enforcement and military and in mental health facility, like a lot of crisis work. And so my tolerance for things is a little higher than the average Joe. So I always tell people, I'm not necessarily normal when it comes to that type of response. So everybody's baseline is different. And so what happens is when you have self-care that is just normal for you. If you're somebody who normally goes to the gym 3 days a week, that starts to turn into a baseline, very, very necessary for you, but you'll find that you'll have to add extra things in order to get to the point of self-care and regeneration. That's a good point. That's a great way to segue.
That we have to expand our coping.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Because these things happen where that one strategy that normally works and normally brings our physiological response down and normally helps us calm down isn't there. What do we do?
Yeah. So I guess final thoughts on this one would be just to recognize that you want to challenge the idea that the bad event is worse than you're making it. You want to challenge the idea that it has more significance than what than what it actually is. And go ahead.
In listening to you, I'm thinking that can also make you catastrophize more because you're thinking this isn't a real issue to really get that upset about.
Yes.
So it can build and build and build. You have to be able to rein it in somehow.
So we'll handle personalization and blame on another one.
Okay.
Because that's what she's talking about there, where you personalize and blame yourself for not being able to have some sense of, control over it. We'll get that one later.
Like I shouldn't be feeling this way.
And that's the shoulds, and we'll cover that one later too. Isn't she wonderful? So we'll cover the shoulds later. We'll cover personalization and blame later. Those are two different ones. We won't do those today. And the last one, just to touch on it, is the idea that you can't deal with it or you can't tolerate it. That you can, this will pass. You always hear people say, "This too shall pass," right? Mm-hmm. Or from Gandalf, "You shall not pass," right? So this is something that will pass, and it's a little difficult to get through. But again, I hope everybody's got that. And did you have anything that you wanted to wrap this up with?
And we'll get to this more, but just that idea that it's fear-based and underneath the one that I said where Lenny may not be around is it goes deeper for all of us because it's a core belief of I can't trust myself to do this.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying this stuff is pretty fear-based and goes deeper than we think.
And again, congratulations to my beautiful, wonderful wife for being that vulnerable. That has a connection to trauma. And that's something we can talk about on another one. The trauma, that piece that she just described. This is. Let me just say this because, like I said, we could just talk for hours and hours. This stuff is very. It's complicated on some level and even somewhat intrusive. But my goal through this is to help you all out there to sort of break this down enough to where it's not so scary for us to talk about it more, for you guys to seek out support on this stuff, to not be afraid to talk about it, to destigmatize it, and to not be afraid to seek out help and support. That's kind of what this is about. So we'll shut this one down there. Follow us however you follow us, subscribe to us. Hopefully you're enjoying these. And you send us a comment or question and like it. And then we'll see you on the next one. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.